Ramana Maharshi never taught no effort. He taught effort until effort is no longer needed. People quote Ramana to justify doing nothing. They say awareness is already here. The self is already present. There's nothing to do. And yet disturbance keeps returning. Reactivity keeps arising. The mind keeps pulling attention back into identification. If presence is already complete, why does this keep happening? Ramana answered this question very clearly. Let's look at what he actually meant by effort and why this point gets skipped in so much modern spiritual teaching. Here's the clarification that changes everything. Ramana never asked anyone to strain. He never asked anyone to achieve something new or become something they weren't. He asked them to stop giving energy to what they are not. That's the effort self-inquiry requires. Not effort to be the self. The self is already what you are. Effort is required to withdraw attention from thought. Effort is required to stop feeding identification. This is the discipline of attention. Not egoic striving, not spiritual ambition, just a quiet, persistent turning inward. Ramana made this very clear. He said, as long as the mind rises, effort is necessary. He said, self-inquiry feels effortful because identification is still active. And he said, when abidance becomes natural, effort drops away on its own. This is an important point. Effort is not opposed to realization. Effort is opposed to laziness disguised as realization. So where does Neo-Advaita go wrong? Let me be precise here. This is not about criticizing anyone. It's about being clear on what actually helps. Neo-Advaita speaks from the end state. It describes what realization looks like once the journey is complete. There's no doer. There's no one to awaken. Everything is already perfect. These statements may be true at the ultimate level, but they ignore the transitional phase that Ramana addressed every single day with the seekers who came to him. They mistake conceptual understanding for abidance. Here's the key distinction. Ramana spoke to seekers who were suffering. He gave them practical guidance because they needed it. Neo-Advaita often speaks as if suffering has already ended, as if the seeker has already dissolved, as if effort is unnecessary because there's no one left to make it. But if you're honest with yourself, you know whether suffering has ended or not. You know whether reactivity still arises. You know whether the sense of being a separate self is still operating. And if it is, then speaking from the end state doesn't help. It just creates another layer of spiritual bypassing. Let's make this concrete. Think about the last time you got irritated and couldn't stop replaying the situation mentally. Think about the last time you felt defensive when someone criticized you. Think about what happens when you try to sit in silence and compulsive thinking takes over within seconds. Think about an emotional charge that simply won't dissolve on its own, no matter how much you understand that your awareness. If these are present, effort is not optional. Inquiry is required, right when the irritation flares up, not later in theory. This is exactly why Ramana kept pointing people back to inquiry, again and again. Not because they needed to achieve something, but because identification was still active, because the mind was still rising, because attention was still being captured by thought. Now here's where some people resist. They hear effort and think force. They think strain. They think spiritual ambition and ego trying to awaken. That's not what Ramana meant. The effort he pointed to is gentle but firm. It's not forcing the mind to be still. It's refusing to follow thought. It's not straining to reach some state. It's returning attention to the sense of I every time it wanders. Think of it like holding a hot cup of tea. You're not straining. You're not forcing anything. You're just not letting go unconsciously. That's the quality of effort Ramana described. Relaxed vigilance, gentle persistence, a quiet refusal to be pulled into identification without awareness. When effort is understood this way, resistance falls away. It's not about doing more, it's about not doing what you've been doing unconsciously, not following every thought, not believing every reaction, not identifying with every emotion as if it were you. This is where practice becomes real. This is also where many people get stuck. If you want to see how this effort actually works in daily life, I've made a separate video where we walk through Ramana's self-inquiry step by step. I'll link it in the description. And if this kind of grounded, practice-based teaching is helpful, consider subscribing. New videos in this Ramana series focus on applying these teachings, not just talking about them. I'll leave you with this. When effort is no longer needed, it falls away by itself. Ramana was clear about that. He never said effort would be required forever. He said it would dissolve when abidance became natural. But until then, he was equally clear. Attend, inquire, return. dailyselfwisdom.com